talked about that several times over the year. Now, if we agree on something,
Blair. That's good.
we usually make it happen. Davis, how are you?
Davis, how are you? I have 9:01, so it's time to call the order of the Kane County Finance and Budget Committee, July 24th. And we're looking with roll call.
Juby here. Sanchez. Surges,
Who's to be here later?
Tepe,
I'll be here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Berman.
Who's here?
We have an in-person quorum.
We have any remote attendance requests? Mr. Sturgis is on his way, so he should be here shortly. Ms. Lewis is on her way back from Arkansas, so.
Mike Dale,
And pardon?
Mike.
Microphone?
Are not.
Here's a woman that wants to listen to you. See?
In my house, that's very unusual.
That's pretty good.
Oh.
That's pretty good, Mike.
The women, they. All right. Like approval of minutes from our June 26th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
BS for unanimous consent.
That's fine. Anybody against that? All right, they're approved by consent. Public comments? I have no knowledge of any public comments. Either on agenda or non-agenda. Item 7 on our agenda is Treasurer's Report, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This morning, I just have 3 areas to address their thoughts on performance, the budget, and then response. So first on performance, Blair, if you could help us with page 8. Okay, so this is the interest income. We cover this each meeting, but it is at the heart of summarizing where we stand for the benefit of our mutual constituents. You know, the budget last year of interest was 1.8 million approximately. The promised amount for our administration was $2 million more. So that was about 3.8 million. Actual performance before accrual adjustments was just under 17 million last year. Then this year in 2024, each month it's been approximately $1.5 million of county money interest income that the county keeps and uses. Those are the blue columns for each month. And then the yellow column is collection interest on collected amounts for other tax agencies. So in June, the month that we're reporting on, the amount that we keep is about 1.6 million, but then we also send another approximately 1.4, 1.5 to taxing agencies. So everybody's benefiting. The next, if you would, and this isn't gelled yet, but if you go to page 9, and thank you, Blair, you keep us all organized so well. And I know that this is, oh, wow. Oh, we've got the master at the controls today. The only thing that this has been a chart that was put in place by a fellow who had banking background, like, 25 years ago. And there's a lot of things that we still do in the treasurer's office that, benefited by his experience and how he viewed the world. Basically, this chart is performance against benchmarks, short-term benchmarks. And for the first time this past month, the Carolina blue line shows, that's the one that, so if you go to the far right-hand corner or column and then up, yeah, that's right, Blair. That line demonstrates that our performance now in the demand deposit, so that's the short-term money that I'm allowed to invest on behalf of that. Now we're above the benchmarks. So we're working through some of the small returns on tax-free municipal bonds on when interest rates were very low. Unfortunately, we bought long, which, gradually that's just absorbed. And so I think that is, first of all, it's a good thing, but I don't know how durable it is to stay above that standard. We will do our best to stay above that benchmark. But so those were the two pieces for performance that I just wanted to draw your attention to. Second thing is the budget. Just briefly, I understand what a challenge it is to put together the annual budget. And so we want to do our part of there are really two hurdles to go across. One is that contractual and commodities, the board has instructed finance and then the elected officers to keep that under 3% or under. And then for wages, 2.5% between adjusted and final wages in the budget. So it's 2.5% for budget or for wages, and it's 3% for contractual and commodities. If you boil down my understanding of what the instructions are from the board to live within what you desire. And we've done that in our budget. We are catching up. We have very senior people who are worth their weight in platinum. Unfortunately, one of the challenges that we have just in the long run is that in about 6 to 7 years, we have 4 to 5 of those highly competent and dedicated people who are going to be retiring. And so any compensation beyond the 2.5%, basically if you say, well, how does everything balance out then? Thank goodness that we have reserves in the tax automation fund, and we balance it out there so that we meet your requirements in the general fund and still get the job done of protecting the family incomes of the people who are so dedicated to the work in the treasurer's office. And then, so that's on the budget. And then finally, and I believe that that's in the package, submitted in the package. And then finally, I am happy to respond to a criticism constructive criticism at the last meeting. I didn't realize until the third speaker that they were talking about me, about what I was, about my report. So finally I caught on, and naturally I respect where people are coming from, what they're sharing at the podium. Takes a lot of time and takes a lot of, get up and do it. And so I wanted to address it. Blair, if you could go to the package that I was, slow in getting it to you. But so basically the point of the 4 speakers and I went back and I listened on the video. I appreciate the administration of the finance committee, the people who are involved there, that they got the video up so that people can review the work, take notes. And the 4 speakers, basically the point is, Chris, consider your sources. We don't want to make partisan politics out of those reports. They're absolutely right. I totally agree. It is interesting to me that the 4 speakers do have a legitimate political bias that was not disclosed in the meeting. It's okay. They don't have to. That's part of the conversation. And everybody has a right to speak. I think that people who come here ought to be eventually in an appropriate way responded to. And so I wanted to respond in just a few minutes to these. So if you go to the next slide, please do consider the sources. So The difference in those reports and and I have a slide that will demonstrate from my point of view, and perhaps, not everybody's going to agree on it, but we're trying to figure out what the determinants are of what's going to affect our revenue for Kane County, interest income, also grants from the state of Illinois. The sources I have tried in the past, and now I'm circling the source. The source is different from the compilers, the presenters, and the messengers, who the speakers, I believe, object to, and I understand why they do. And I concede that I see the point of view, and there are those different perspectives. It's kind of don't shoot the messenger, but the messengers are secondary to the sources. I made, there was at least one in there that I was so focused on the main message of the slide, I didn't see the partisan comment that was made. If I were them, I'd take offense at it too. But I listed out the sources that I bring in those, in those notes in the reports. So if you go to the next slide, Blair. Basically, I think the whole purpose, what board members want to do, what I would like to do on your behalf in being a good partner is what are the determinants or the predictors of interest rate, county revenue. So if you go to the right-hand side of this sheet, you see the different revenues that you are trusted to spend, and then you see the things that are going to affect that. And so I want to give at least things that I read from, I believe, reliable sources like the U.S. Office of Management Budget, the Department of Treasury, Barron's, respected, Federal Reserve, Bureau of Economic Analysis, Bloomberg. I mean, Bloomberg, I think he ran for president on the Democrat ticket, but his institution, media institution, is recognized for reliable information. Bureau of Labor Statistics, Kane County Connects, and Illinois Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability, COGFA. That's a very important projection kind of organization in the state of Illinois in Springfield. But these are basically some of the determinants. And so you can almost categorize the articles and charts that you see there. The next slide, Blair. It is important to me that I fulfill, a couple of the speakers said, I want to remind everybody when you run for public office that you represent all people. And of course, that's right. I have worked on that for 30 years of my life. And so that's very important. So I want to just put up a couple of bipartisan credentials. When I was in the Illinois Senate, co-sponsored legislation, maybe 10, 12 items with the dominant party, including former President Barack Obama. The picture on the right-hand side is my introducing my former colleague at a reception at the Prisco Center at Lake and Illinois at the Prisco Center in Aurora. So it's like working across the aisle. The next chart and the final chart is during the time as chairman, we took a lot of effort to, but good, that the county board approach is historical fact, and I tried to quantify it, that I tried to balance assignments to chairmanship based on party, gender, ethnic, racial, demographics, that the people sent certain proportion of Democrats, Republicans to serve among the 25 people, the board chairman, and then 24. The members, like for instance, by party affiliation, this chart is from years ago, 2016. Of the members who were elected from Republicans, it was 58%, that first line. So the chairmanship, there were 57% of the chairmanship of I think there were 12 committees, 14 chairman or co-chairman, and it was proportional. Democrats, it was 42% was elected Democrat, and chairman were 43%. So a little bit over on the other side, gender and then racial demographics the same. So I heard what people were saying. I made notes of it. I take it to heart and mind, and I just wanted to report back to the committee. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions of our treasurer? Moving on. Auditor's report, Ms. Wegman.
Morning. My name is Tom Laird, the Deputy Auditor for the Auditor's Office. The audit reports are on file and are included in the packets, as well as the budget reports are included also. Any questions regarding the budget should be sent to Auditor Wegman. She can answer those for you. And if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to help you guys.
We have a resolution to approve the June 2024 claims paid for $9,362,988.39. A motion to approve?
To be motions.
To be
Leonard will second.
seconds, discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Surges,
Abstain.
Tepe,
Steppy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Oh, yes. Passes. Fiscal year 2025 auditor budget reports.
Yep, those are also included in the packet.
All right. Any questions of Tom? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Finance Director Hopkinson.
Yes, several things to present today, starting off with the monthly executive director's report. I'll just highlight one thing in the report, and that is if you can go to the second page of the next page. This is just the new monthly report that I'm keeping that shows essentially how much of the fund balance we're using as of the end of the month. So as of when I prepared this report a couple of weeks ago, for the general fund, we were using $12 million of fund balance to pay for expenses through that part of the year. Now that number is going to change. As you recall, our budget, we budgeted $10 million use of fund balance, but our revenues come in obviously at different times. So there's timing issues. Does anyone have any other questions on the monthly report? Okay. The next presentation is the 2025 budget presentation for the finance department itself. The finance department, I've got an org chart here. The finance department is composed of three areas, the finance accounting portion, purchasing and payroll. The org chart up here shows we've got 3 people in purchasing, 3 in payroll, 1 is vacant right now. Our payroll clerk. We have a new position this year, grant administrator. We had that person start 2 months ago that replaced an accounting staff position that we previously had. So we swapped out an accountant for a grant administrator position. We have a budget analyst, and then the finance accounting staff. We have 1 part-time accounting clerk, and then we have a summer intern who has been invaluable to us this year, assisting us on literally everything. Next slide, please. The 2025 budget, some of the increases, we're going out to bid. Actually, the RFP is out right now for our annual audit services. We had a 5-year contract that ended with our 2023 audit. So we will, all of the responses are due August 1st. The pricing for our audit was from 5 years ago, so I expect that it's going to go up. We also don't just pay our annual audit firm just for the annual audit. Any little special projects that come up during the year, transition audits, et cetera, new grant programs, they have a rate per hour, which is why our audit fees fluctuate over the years. In our contractual and consulting line, we have built in some implementation costs for some forecasting software, which is on the agenda today. Half of the implementation hopefully will occur this year and then the second half next year. And the other highlights, conferences and training, employee training. The attendance at the New World Annual Conference in May, which is held in May every year, is about $2,500 per person. We typically plan for 4 people in our department to go between finance and payroll. That is why we've got a conference cost of $10,000. Employee training, we are trying to improve on employee training. We've got 3 CPAs on staff. We have certified purchasing staff, certified payroll managers who attend all sorts of trainings to maintain their certifications, et cetera. And we've also got for next year, the purchase we're working with the transportation department to figure out how we're going to allocate the cost of the forecasting software. They have historically paid for it. We're going to be using that contract for the rest of the county. So are going to figure out how those costs are allocated across the county. And then the next several pages are the mission and outcomes for the finance department. We've actually been using this template for the last several months in the monthly executive director's report to report status against mission and outcomes. This first part of the mission and outcomes is taken right out of the county code as to what the finance department is responsible for. And does anybody have any questions on the 2025 budget for finance?
Mr. Lawson,
Uh,
excuse me.
Thank you,
Your
Mr.
Honor.
Herberman. Kathy, I've got a question for you on your slide on page 327. I looked at the different actual expenses from 22 to 24. I understand the employee training and the conferences, but I was also wondering why association dues have more than doubled in 2 years.
It is, again, the CPAs on staff, the payroll certifications, the purchasing certifications. Historically, from what I understand, the county finance department did not reimburse employees for their membership in professional associations. And so we did that with the 2024 budget. We put that in the 2024 budget and we have it in the 2025 budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay. The next presentation is status of the 2025 budget. As you know, the departments and offices have been presenting their budgets over the last month or so. Essentially, most departments and offices have submitted their budgets. There's obviously tweaks as people continue to look over. There's a couple of debt service funds and the health insurance fund that still need to be addressed, but essentially everybody has submitted their budget. And we're looking for direction from the finance committee and the county board as to how to proceed. So if we go to the next slide. As of right now, we've got a general fund that in order to fund the expenses that have been submitted would require $35 million, which is about a quarter of the expense budget, which is primarily the increases are in salaries and wages and benefits, and then also transferred to the capital fund. In the 2024 budget and 2023, the county did not transfer funds to the capital projects fund for buildings, maintenance and technology projects. But based on the budget that was prepared for the capital projects fund, the general fund would need to transfer money to fund those purchases. Next slide, please. So a slide that you're all familiar with seeing, which is how does using up the fund balance impact the emergency reserves, which we need to maintain, which the county has a policy that for the general fund, we want to maintain 90 days of emergency reserves. So if we were to adopt a budget for 2025 and use up $35 million in reserves, if you look at the 2025, we would have only $3 million left above our emergency reserve target. We would have $3.3 million left. And then in the subsequent year, we would essentially have drained our emergency reserves. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Yes, Kathy, I wanted to ask you, with respect to the emergency reserve, didn't we reduce that over the last year or two down to 90 days from, I believe it was 180 days?
Correct.
So we've already cut it in half. And now you're saying if we use the emergency reserves, in essence, within 2 years, it'll be gone.
Well, we have reserves in excess of our 90-day target, which we've been using the last couple of years. If you look at that third line where it says total general fund balance, at the end of 2022, we had $97 million in reserves. At the end of 23, we have $86 million in reserves. Projected for 2024, based on our budget, we have 76. So if we use a $35 million in reserves for 2025, we will only have $41 million left in reserves. And the 90-day target is calculated on, we need 90 days of our subsequent year expenditures. So we would need to maintain 38 million. So 41 million minus 38 is 3.3. So then by 2026, we would essentially have not only would we not have reserves in excess of our 90-day target, we would have used up our emergency reserves by the end of 2026.
So what are your suggestions in order not to get into that scenario?
I would look for the finance committee's recommendations on that.
So you have no suggestions?
The suggestions are obviously to increase revenues.
I think we've discussed the your suggestions in the past as to what we can do. So
Right.
I think we need to move on and talk about that. But,
Fine.
you know, we've talked about the different areas we could. Obviously, the other is to cut back on the 155 million to closer to 115 million. If that's our revenue is going to be.
Mr. Chair, Tepe here.
Yes.
A few months ago, I put on a presentation that showed that this was exactly what was going to happen. That we are going to exhaust our reserve funds. And there were some alternatives in there. One was to reallocate the RTA tax. Second was to institute the gasoline tax. And third was to increase the amount each year by the allowable amount, which is 2.9%, I believe, this year under the PTEL. Okay. And the other alternative is to begin cutting back on personnel. Where in the hell's our plan? Why is anybody not talking about this? We've got a train wreck coming and we're not doing a damn thing about it. I feel like nobody's listening to me.
Ms. Juby?
So we had discussed putting together a meeting where we could talk about what budget cuts would look like and what our path forward is. And it's 2 months later and we still haven't done that. So what is the status of that?
I think we're waiting for the budget draft. And now we have all that information, we can move. That was more for futures than it was for this year. But at least that was our initial discussion. But I think that we made the committee had made the recommendation to how we should conduct the budget, what should be included and what should be excluded. And I think that the different departments, decided they did not like what we had presented, so they've gone ahead with what they've all required, they feel they require. So I think now is the time for us to make a decision.
But when I listened to the presentation in the committee level, there was no back and forth from the committees saying, okay, we need you to identify, with the exception of judicial with two, with the circuit clerk and with Lisa Oust, there was no one that really identified any places where they could make cuts. And I was under the impression that the first time they presented it, then there would be a robust conversation about what could be removed from the budget or what could be changed. And then that I didn't see it happen in any of the committee meetings I was in. And now we're here with a preliminary budget and we haven't had these discussions. So I was under the impression that the department heads and the electeds were supposed to plead their case to their committees. Their committees were supposed to decide if it was something they were going to go ahead with or not. And then it was going to get recollected and it would be here and it's not. So to Mr. Teppi's point, we've been talking about it, but somewhere along the way, the committees have actually dropped the ball.
Well, I think that, Ms. Moline.
Thank you, Chair Berman. And I agree with Ms. Juby. I think my biggest problem with the way this review's gone year after year is that there is no mechanism for the committee to really provide input. There is no action that the committee takes when they're reviewing budgets. Judicial and Public Safety had 14 budgets to review in one day. The majority of them were presented the same day. So we didn't even have time to review the budgets before they were presented to us. So there was no way for us to even ask questions about, and some department heads didn't even present their budgets. They just presented organizational charts. So I've always had an issue with the way the process works. And our code states that each standing committee of the county board shall examine the proposed annual budget of the office, departments, and functions under its jurisdiction and shall submit all said budgets with recommendations to the executive board. There's no mechanism for each standing committee to submit recommendations. In the past, I've, done simulations in college and, I sat on the Bureau of the Budget, which is, they review the whole entire budget of the state government and they provide recommendations on every single line item, but there's a way of doing it. And our committee structure does not allow it. And at the same time, it falls under the finance committee to propose a budget. So I'm not sure exactly how we can fix that, but there has to be a mechanism in place where there's a process where it's presented to each committee and then we have a process of reviewing yes or no. I don't know if Kathy could tell us which departments are proposing an excess of the 3% and the 2.5%. And then can we go back to those departments and tell them and talk to them on how, that you're in excess. So come back to the board and tell us why you feel you need more than what we've proposed.
Yeah, I can certainly obviously provide you with that information.
You say that committees don't have an opportunity to do that.
Well, there's no mechanism in place. If you look at the agenda, it says review presentation. Like today, we were supposed to review the presentation of, I think, the auditor, and the report is just on file. There was no presentation given to us about what the auditor is requesting. So nobody asked questions. We didn't even look at the report. That's just an example of how I feel that there's a piece missing. And we're not going to fix it this year, but we need to talk about how we need to fix it in the next coming years.
Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In a similar vein, I think we're talking about two things right now. One short term about this year's budget and one long term about this fiscal cliff, as some are calling it, that we're looking at here on the screen. I think what Ms. Molina is speaking to is there is still an opportunity to really develop our processes more and create a more robust and effective way for us to analyze budgets. We're still not there yet. Long term, though, we almost created an ad hoc committee to explore the concept of what we're going to do with our budgetary problems in the next few years, and we decided to keep it in-house here with the Finance Committee. I do share in the frustration that it seems like we're not really making much progress, and we're waiting for all the budgets to come in. Okay, but there are other things we could be discussing on the revenue side, and we're not. And I guess I would just ask if there's a written plan, because it sounds like maybe some people have a concept of what we're doing and what's coming up here, what the process is. But if we could have some kind of written plan that we can actually read, I think that would be helpful for all of us members that are trying to figure all of these things out together. Thank you.
Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern is this. We recommended to all the committees that we would like somewhere between a 2.5% on payroll and other expenses, 3% increase. This budget right now is at a 19% increase. So I don't care how much more revenue you get, you're never going to keep up with that. So what we've got to do is find ways to cut the expenses, because at 19% a year, if you do all the things that Mr. Tepe said, they would all help, but it would be a short-term fix again. And we need to find out how we can control these expenses, because a 19% increase in anyone's budget, not just Kane County, but any budget, is not sustainable even after 1 year. So I think what we have to do is find out why the committees who were given direction to keep it between 2.5% and 3% ended up coming in at an overall general fund increase of 19%, and tell them that they have to go back to the drawing board and get it back in the parameters that we gave them initially.
Surges.
I'm getting just a bit confused with some of the conversations that we might have offline versus what we might have publicly. Because the conversations that I'm recalling were something along the line of, we didn't want the committees to become overly involved, and we wanted we wanted to simply give the department heads dollar figures and allow those department heads to present where they believe they needed to be. If I'm mistaken on that, I apologize, but I thought that's the charge that we gave. And I would love to know the answer for that. Dale, I struggle with the notion, and maybe I should know the answer to this and I'm deficient, but do we have an obligation to present a balanced budget each year and move that forward? And does a balanced budget within that definition means we will pull from reserves to balance that? Because again, I will suggest that in my opinion, that's not balanced. I mean, we're borrowing from the future, and I'm not sure that that's a good thing. And then Bill, my final two comments are, we challenged ourselves 24 months ago, if not a little more, to do this internal equity study. And we've sort of moved forward by saying, hey, now let's go to do an external equity study. When we do those and then come back and say we've had 20% bump in salaries and all of the accoutrements that go with that, that's not shocking to me. If we didn't want to know what the studies said, we shouldn't have commissioned them. And for this board to have said, oh no, move ahead and spend another 150 grand for the external study. It's going to be great to have those figures, but I'm not sure where that is going. So folks, and I mean, I think it's time for us to put the big boy pants on and start making some decisions here. And I don't care either way. And Ms. Molina, I am so happy to get and Ms. Juby, you were excellent at getting into the weeds onto these budgets. But I need clarity as to, are we going to get into the weeds as a collective 24-member board? Or are we giving instructions saying, this is all the money there is? Here's your org chart. You're the department head. You come back to us within those means and do it, because I think those are two different signals, and I'm on the committee and I don't even know which signal we gave. So I just need some clarity on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. So I don't see those as two different things. Because we shouldn't be micromanaging and telling them how to spend the money, but we can go in there and say, you're spending too much, right? And let them figure it out. But what I don't understand, and I've never understood this on any budget I've ever done, why do we continue to base our budgets on the previous year's budget instead of the previous year's actual? Because we are offering a 2% increase or 2.5% increase on a line item that never even came near that amount in the previous year. And yet we're still saying, okay, we'll go ahead and increase that 2.5%. I think what we need to start doing, which is what I do, which is why you said I have good questions. I go back and I look through what historically has been spent, and then I shoot a question out and saying, hey, Kathy, why is this $10,000 when you've only historically spent $1,200? And that's what I see our job is. And I don't see us doing that. And I'm not saying that, okay, you need to cut that line. I'm just saying you need to justify to me why you are asking for money that you haven't even spent in the past several budgets. And if that's where you want to stand, you're going to have to find someplace else to cut your money. So I don't see those as two different things that you're asking. And I think that we should be a little more consistent when we do our budgeting and not automatically put money on top of another budget, which was just an estimate from an estimate from an estimate.
Comments?
Chairman Berman, to answer Mr. Surge's question, this committee is, it's under the jurisdiction to provide a balanced budget to forward to the executive committee. So yeah, this is the committee to forward a balanced budget.
The specific question, if I may, sir.
Yes.
Was, does balance include, here's our budget, we're going to grab it from reserve to make it balanced? Or is
Yeah.
budget, in my opinion, a balanced budget is, these are your revenues, these are your expenditures. We're not taking from the savings account to balance it. And I mean, that's my specific on there, because without that, whoa, we have a chasm here that we need to roll up our sleeves.
Leonard?
Doing that, what Mr. Surges says, for the last number of years, we've been taking money out of reserve to balance it.
And I've been
I
bitching
think
about
your
it the whole
question
time.
Maybe more succinctly is, shouldn't we present a balanced budget without using reserves?
Well, that's the question for the board. And we've
I say
answered
it
that every year.
sir. I'm saying it
We've
again this
answered that
year,
every
so.
year in the past by saying, yes, take it out of
Yeah.
reserve.
And I think it's got to stop.
Based on what we've done, I guess we would go ahead and do the same thing.
It'll stop when we run out. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
that's kind of like not really a great option.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair Tuppy here.
Yeah.
This is one of the most crazy discussions I've seen in a long time. It's this committee's responsibility to submit a balanced budget. And if we're going to be so reckless to say we're going to handle that budget out of reserves, we're not doing our damn job. Now we've got to get down into the weeds. If we don't have the money to do something, we need to go back to each of these departments and sections and say we don't have the money. So I don't think we should argue about whose job it is. It's our job. Let's start doing it. I'm ready to do it. I said that months ago. So again, this to me just crazy.
So who should be making those cuts then for each department and each? Is that the department?
Elected.
In my opinion, it's up to us to determine a dollar amount for each department and say, this is what you've got. You come back to us and tell us what you're going to cut. If you begin to look at things from the information from the state's attorney, my interpretation of that is the state's attorney said, you don't tell me what to do with my budget. You tell me what my budget is. Okay? And I think that that should be the same for every department. I think it would be inappropriate to go to the department manager and say, you've got to do this and this and this. That department manager is the one who knows how to run it. Okay? The elected officials are the ones that know how to run their departments. But if we don't have the funds to allow them to do that, we have to allow them to determine what it is they're going to cut. So,
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we already gave all the elected officials and department heads that directive. Did they follow it? Obviously not. I think we have to go back and say, hey, here it is. You've got to balance your budget with what we have directed you to do. We're not using reserves anymore to balance the budget, period, and leave it at that. I do not want to micromanage any department. I want them to manage their own department, but we have to give them direction on how much money they're getting. And we've already done that and we have to stick to it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, did Mr. Leonard disagree with me?
Bill.
Roth here. I agree with Leslie. It should be based off of last year's actuals, not off budget. In the corporate world, it's always off actuals. The other is we had an estimate at the beginning of the year. Here's what the budget was going to be. And then it grew. You know, we had what, 12 million last year that we had to take out a negative. And then we started, and I don't remember exactly, but I think it was 18. And then a month ago it was 22, and now it's 35. So in a way, we're not doing our job, because we should have said to the departments, and like Mr. Tepe said, down to the department level, here's what your budget is. You need to do all the fun work to make it work, or justify to us why you need more. And we didn't do that. What we let them do is come in with their wish list. And we're in big trouble if we continue to do that.
It was my feeling that we gave them the instruction, and we also told them to, when there was some pushback to submit what they felt the budget should be. And now we have the opportunity to cut that. Now, how do we do that?
But I actually think it should have been two. Here's what we're saying it is, and let them do their wish list, but then they're going to have to justify. Because right now, because all they came was the wish list, they're going to say, oh, you're beating up on us. Well, no, the reality is it should have been, here's, what was it, 2.5%? It should have been over actual. That's what you have to hit. And it's your fun job to figure out how to do it.
Yes, I think it's very simple. We go back to the departments. We say we have to stand firm on what we gave you direction on earlier, because we have no more money, period. And so make your budget work. Presentations, I understand every department and elected official has a right to make a presentation, and I fully support that. But that doesn't mean that that presentation overshadows our direction. It's just something that they wanted to present, which I feel they have every right to. But the reality is we only have so much money right now. We have to balance a budget. As Mr. Surgis had pointed out, in the past, we've always used reserves. We're not doing that anymore. We know how much more revenue supposedly we're going to get, or we have a pretty close projection on that. We directed them. They came back, made their presentations. Now we redirect them to resubmit a budget within the directives that we gave them, period.
I agree 100%. I think that though, that doesn't mean that there won't be a need for something, additional revenue from someplace. Okay.
Mr. Berman, I do have one other thought too, and I've brought this up in the past, and I think it's something we need to look at. The interest earned by the Treasurer's Department goes to, I forget, 100 and some different departments. There is no accountability for that money. And last year I had asked if we could use the ARP interest money to help balance the budget. Originally, I was told no, then it was correct and said, yes, we can. I think what we as a board need to do is redirect the monies earned from the treasurer's department to give us the option of using that if we want in the budget. That isn't reserved, that's earned money that year. And that would go very far in helping to balance the budget if we need additional money over that 2.5%. That's our option, but I think we have to go back and say, we're sticking with our directive and you've got to come back with the balanced budget with this figure and increase included. And then if there are some things down the road where we need additional money, I think we need to change the code so that we can then take monies that the treasurer's office earned, this isn't reserved, but earned, and use that to help balance any additional expenses that come up during the year.
I think it's
Can-
semantics, though, whether it's interest earned or whether it's reserved. It's the same, you know.
No, it isn't. Interest earned is what you earn that year.
No, but
Reserve
it's-
is money
it
you
went
put
into
aside,
It went into reserve for someplace,
but it shouldn't. That's my point.
but that's why I'm saying it's a semantics as to whether we're talking about interest or
Uh,
taken from reserve. Well, Surges, you had it.
I just wanted to add, there's a $14.5 million in interest that we included in the 2025 budget. And we also included a transfer from the ARPA fund into the general fund, so it's already included in this draft
Still
budget.
35 million in the hole.
Yes.
We've got to go back to the departments and elected officials and tell them. And, I think we as a finance committee have to agree on that and direct the finance director to go back to them and tell them that.
I agree.
Uh,
Surges.
Mr. Berman, I do take my responsibility seriously. And if these departments did come back and say, hey, listen, if just because Roger's in the room, if IT came back and said, listen, we can do that. And here's 3 different ways. We just need direction from you. That would be our role to say, okay, of those 3, we could prioritize this one in front of that one. And I'd be happy to work with that. But I don't know, again, that going back in the weeds that far is our responsibility. Maybe it is. I don't know
That's
that,
a-
but
that's a question, yeah.
but we really need to figure out, are we going, Bill, are we going to them and saying, here, you're the department head, present to us? Or are we going into the weeds? And we need to make sure that that's clear as could be, the action that we're taking on. So
Well, I think we have consensus that, Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, I guess the concern is really what is the actual, if we were to do an across the budget or across the board budget cut to get us to the number that we need to be at, if we're not going to use reserves, what would that number be? I think last year when we were doing budget stuff, we had put that question forward and it was about a 10% cut across the board. Realistically, how would we achieve that? Because I remember being on the board previously under Chairman Laws and we did a much smaller across the board cut and it was very painful for some departments. There was a lot of pressure created because of that. We got through it. It was a smart move to do, but how are we going to do a 10%, potentially 10% cut? It's my question. And realistically, what's the biggest expenditure we have is payroll. And what are the bigger pieces of the pie of the budget? That's the judicial branch. These are just huge, huge numbers. And we could talk about cuts, but what's the reality of that? How do we actually get to that without major pushback, which we already know we'll get in some form or another? So I'm not saying we need to answer that, but it's something we all need to really be thinking about. That should be part of the conversation before we move on.
Melina.
Mr. Berman, just to piggyback on what Mr. Sanchez is saying, I don't think across the board cuts make sense. I think we've looked at other budgets. We looked at smaller budgets, like an energy and environment. There is nothing else left to cut there. So you can't ask a small budget to cut 10%, especially when they've already followed the 2.5% and 3% guidelines that we've set. We have to look at the budgets that have been presented that did not follow the guidelines that the Finance Committee has reviewed. And that's, I think, the direction. I'm not on this committee, but I think that should be the direction that this committee should take, is to look at those specific departments and discuss those budgets with those departments.
I guess that makes what I was saying all the more dire, because then bigger percentages would come out of these offices and departments.
Well, we don't know. We don't know which departments yet. I haven't looked at every department. I don't know who went over and why. So they should come back and present and provide their why they went over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Tepe here. Earlier, Mr. Leonard was talking about the ability to recapture some of the interest funds. The state's attorney's office has already given us an opinion on that. In any special reserve fund, we cannot take that interest. It goes to that fund. So all of, prime example is KDOT. All of the interest earned associated with the KDOT funds has to go back to those funds. So yes, we have some leeway with things like the ARPA fund, but we don't have leeway with the other. Okay. And in addressing, Mr. Sanchez, we're not talking about a 10% cut if we don't want to use reserves. We're talking about a 20% cut. We're talking about a cut that will reduce personnel throughout. So we also have to get looking at revenue. And even though some of the revenue things that we could do ourselves without going out to referendum, they will make a difference if we do them. And, everybody for some reason is afraid to really have that discussion. Gee, I'm not going to get reelected. Well, if I don't get reelected, I don't get reelected, but damn it, I'm going to do my job. And we've got to get some additional revenue in addition to the cuts. But it's up to this committee to do that, not up to us to wait for the board to do something. So I want to see this committee do its job, Mr. Chair.
Looking at, we suggested 2.5% and 3%, whatever, increase over last year. Even that, looking at last year's budget, which was, we took money out of reserves to balance the budget. Looking at that, we still have to take money out of the reserves if we limited the increase to 3%. So at least we've got to have a different method of getting money.
So I don't mean to keep asking questions, but I recall having a conversation about how across the board cuts are not equitable. They're not equal. $1 to one person, not the same to $1 to another. We asked Kathy how long it would take us to figure out what percentage each department got from the budget. And then that would be the percentage that we could ask them to cut out. I don't know where we stand in that. I know that she wasn't able to do that until everyone has submitted budgets. So what I would like to see, in addition to knowing who is over the 2.5 and the 3, I would also like to know what department or elected official gets what percentage of the budget that would be done out of reserves, so that we can figure out what a fair and equitable percentage decrease they need to find. And I would suspect, just based on what I saw, a lot of them will find that just by going back and going to their actual instead of their previous budget. So those would be the things that I would like to ask for as a committee, as long as we are tasked with figuring out how to do a balanced budget. I heard loud and clear from everyone that they wanted to see cuts before they looked at increases in taxes or other revenue sources. So now's the time for us to do that, because we don't have any more time.
I think that's a consensus of our feeling that needs
Phone?
presented to,
Microphone, sir?
I'm sorry. I think that's a consensus of our feeling here that it needs to be presented to each department and to go back to the 2.5 and 3% and come back to us with a balance of that.
And-
Kathy, does that sound right?
Yeah, that's fine. But just as a reminder, so the 2.5% was for non-union employees that we built into the budget. There are half of the county employees are in a union, a collective bargaining agreement that have salary increases that are greater than 2.5%. The 3% was on the non-salary and benefit items like contractual services, et cetera. So that's fine. I did want to continue with my presentation, but I would ask respectfully to the committee, what is the timeline for proceeding with presentation of this information, review of this information, next decisions, et cetera?
If we worked it backwards, where's that put us?
We have to get it done by October.
We're already behind, right?
We're actually, the original budget calendar had, a good draft of the entire budget being presented in August. So this is I would call it a rough draft.
Yeah.
So we're actually, back to where we used to be, take out last year. That was an anomaly. But we're pretty, on schedule. But with the additional work that needs to be done, if we had a balanced budget, we'd be in good position, but clearly there's a lot of work ahead. So I think just waiting until the next committee, that's why I'm just asking if, what is the timeline?
Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. We've talked a lot about, for a lot of your conversation about payroll and other commodities. I'd like to remind you that we do have a lot of deferred maintenance on our buildings. Right now, thanks to ARPA, we've been able to improve the county jail, which is a long-term valuable asset, in the tune of about $17 million, with another $2 million worth of repairs that need to be done in that facility. So as we continue to cut, with all due respect to previous budgets, that money was not available to do the capital repairs necessary to maintain our assets, our physical assets. So as you look at these cuts, please keep that in mind as well, because we need to provide a appropriate working condition for our employees, any employees who are left. To give you a brief example, at the end of August, upstairs, we will be closed. Our office will be closed for about 2 weeks as they get rid of asbestos. And the asbestos tiles have been there for maybe 50, 60 years. This room here will be closed off next week. There'll be no access to this county boardroom because they're going to be repairing the roof and once again replacing carpeting. So we have to maintain these assets, otherwise they will deteriorate. And as just a quick reminder, I know Ms. Juby is very interested in historic properties. Well, the yellow house was deteriorating with its soffit. Literally, the wood was rotting away. Literally, there were leaks in the roof. And because of ARPA money, we were able to repair those assets, but those assets continue to have needs. So I'm just putting that out as well.
It's so ironic to listen to Corinne Green and look at the weed growing in the gutter right through the window. It just, I mean, it's a weed. It's
Weed.
in a gutter.
Tree,
One over here too.
It's on this side.
tree over there.
Other comments? I think continue on.
So the timeline would be, because I can turn around a report showing the increases by department fairly quickly. So then I would submit that to the finance committee. You would probably have that by Friday. Would you like to have another meeting or just wait until the next finance committee meeting?
I think we need another meeting. I don't think we can wait. I think we need to come up with the numbers so that we can make a good decision as to where move forward. Mr. Leonard.
Mr. Chairman, Kathy, when you get those figures to us, could you also compare those to the actual
Yes.
numbers so that we have a comparison? We can look at that. Thank you.
Ms. Julie says that we should look at what the actual was rather than.
I mean, obviously, we don't have 2024 actual for the end of the year, but we have 2023 actual. And even if you adjust for inflation and for other things, there are huge gaps between what was spent and what was being budgeted for. And then there's an increase on top of what was budgeted for, which is a great way to get money in your budget. But when we're talking about this huge deficit that we have, maybe now's the time to be doing it that way.
Yeah, with the that report, Kathy, if we could also kind of separate the payroll cost increases. I think we all agree on those. But what's the overage after that? That's
Yeah, the
questions
payroll
we'll have.
increase over the prior year is obviously more than 2.5% because the 2023 did not include all of the equity increases that were processed effective the first day of fiscal 2024. Plus the a collective bargaining agreement increases. So yes, easy to do.
Thank you.
We make another meeting.
Yeah, another meeting.
Mr. Chair, are we doing another meeting?
Yes,
Are we doing that right now? Discussing when that would be?
open any suggestions.
Not next week.
Well, when we're all here would be helpful.
Next week's wide open. We have no meetings.
Yeah.
They're fixing the room.
Well, we can have a
Yeah.
meeting
Need somebody else,
downstairs. Yeah, meet downstairs. There's other.
Yeah,
places
that's
we
true.
can-
I mean, we could. It's not as fancy.
How long do we need to notice our location?
What do
Mr.
you-
Frank, how long do we need to notice our location if we're changing from our standard location? Is it still
Well,
48 hours?
This would be a special meeting, right? So you
Right.
just need 48 hours.
Okay,
That's next
not
week.
if it's,
Next week is wide open.
if it's, we change, that's what I was asking.
So are we getting everything from Kathy on Friday? So actually starting Monday, any day next week would be good to do it. And we can have it right down below this meeting room here.
We'll have to, well, first make sure that that room is not reserved for anything else. So we'll find that out. But if you can give me a couple of dates, we'll get that found out very quickly.
Mr. Chairman. Bates, please. Is this meeting a special meeting of the Finance Committee, or is this a subcommittee that will be directed towards this one specific issue?
It's finance.
We said when we talked about a subcommittee to review things, it was the idea or the entire committee wanted to be a committee of the whole, so.
Okay, well, I hope it's directed towards that one issue. And I have one more comment, please. When we talk about these deep cuts, we're not only talking about our employees who are probably listening to this meeting right now, wondering, 20% cut, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're out, 1, 2, 3, 4, what is happening to our employees as we're discussing this? And also, what will happen to our services as a county to provide a safe, healthy environment if we do have to make terrible cuts like this? So that's my opinion. Thank you.
So suggested time, date,
We're here for executive. Do it right after.
Next week though.
Wait,
On the 8th.
After next week.
no,
Oh,
I thought we're
yeah.
talking next week is
31st.
July 29th, correct?
Yeah, executive 7th,
30th.
31st.
Well, I don't think we should,
Monday,
should wait
Tuesday, or
that
Wednesday
long.
morning.
what was that?
Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday morning.
Not Monday morning.
Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning is fine.
Tuesday at 9.
Tuesday at 9 works for me.
All right.
I just want to finish just 2 more slides real quick. The next slide, just to kind of beat a dead horse, as they say, but based on the draft budget, we're not only draining our general fund, but we're draining our IMRF and our the FICA fund, which is for payroll taxes. The wonderful complications of governmental accounting, but the pension costs and the payroll tax costs for employees that are paid out of the general fund are made out of 2 special revenue funds, which are funded by property taxes and obviously interest income. And it's set up that way, actually not by governmental accounting. It's set up that way because of IMRF. They have restrictions that they need the pension costs in a separate fund. So essentially, because salaries are going up, the amount of payroll tax dollars obviously goes up, and the pension rates for 2025 are up compared to 2024. We have 2 different rates. We have a rate for regular employees, and then we have a rate for sheriff's law enforcement. which is about 3 times the regular employee rate. So as all of those costs go up, we are draining our IMRF and our FICA funds as well. And, you know, the way to, if that were to occur, we would have to move, shuffle property tax revenue around, and the obvious place to take property tax revenue to ensure that we paid pension and payroll would be from the general fund. So just wanted to make that point.
Yep.
Yep.
Do we not have, don't we have a levy for this?
Right. So the county
But the
has
levy
one.
is not enough, is what you're saying.
Correct. And if you look over the years, we have shifted our levies between general fund and IMRF and the FICA fund to balance it out over the years. Yeah, if you looked at like a 10-year report, but the last couple of years, we have left the levy amounts the same. So yeah, if we had to grab additional property tax levy amount, the funds across the county that have a property tax levy are the general fund, IMRF, payroll taxes, county highway, county bridge, county highway matching, health department, and veterans.
And how many of those could be increased by a PTEL?
The PTEL is on the whole levy as a whole.
Okay.
So last year it was about 58 million. So the PTEL rate for that was issued by the Illinois Department of Revenue is 3.4%.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
correcting me from earlier, 3.4, 2.9.
Yes, Kathy, you said the last couple of years now, we have not proportionally increased IMRF with respect to increased payroll.
We have not moved any property tax levy amounts from the general fund over to the IMRF and the FICA, because that's what has historically been done. As each fund needs a little more, a little less, you're just moving, the total amount is the same. You're just moving how it's allocated between those 3 funds. The county only has one levy. We decide how we allocate it across all of the those funds that I just mentioned. And then that's how we, as part of the budget process, we adopt resolutions on each one of those to state this is the amount for this year that we're going to put into that fund. And I have a piece of good news. It's not all bad. Just got an email that the partial defeasance of the King County Toll Bridge revenue bonds occurred this morning. So we funded actually $18.2 million. We received the $17.5 million grant, and then we also took interest earned from the fund where the money was deposited, as well as another one of our capitalized interest debt service funds. And we wired that money. The treasurer's office worked very well with us over the last week to get a lot of paperwork signed, a lot of signatures, a lot of closing documents. But that was closed this morning. So we look forward to, so the county will not have to make, the transportation department will not have to make any further debt service payments starting today. They won't have to make their July debt service payment. The entire bond is still not defeased. There is, as you are well aware, a $12.5 million grant that the state has also promised. KDOT is working on filling out that application and getting that paperwork done. And once we receive that, we can fully defease the bond, but the county will not have to make any debt service payments through 2028 at this point. So that's very good news.
You had me excited like we were going to be able to open that thing this weekend, but yeah.
Couple of weeks. Give us a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a month. This year for sure, though.
I've been saying that for 5 years.
All right. We'll talk about our special meeting. It's going to be Tuesday at 9 a.m. as long as we can get that published and everything.
This coming Tuesday.
This coming Tuesday, the 30th.
And then,
Happy,
and when can Kathy get us the information?
By Friday.
By Friday, thank you.
all right, moving on. Did anybody have any further questions of Kathy? All right, moving on. New business, budget adjustments. A is a resolution approving agreement with the EAG Great Lakes LLC doing business as Eisenramper to provide professional software implementation services to the Finance Department of Budget Transfer. The $57,780 with a $35,000 transfer.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Leonard. seconds.
Leonard, discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item B is a resolution approving purchase from Workday Adaptive Planning of Pleasanton, California for access to and use of data and analytics and budgeting forecasting software and a budget transfer. The total amount, $9,613 of a $4,000 transfer.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Juby,
Leonard,
seconds.
Leonard, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And C is a resolution, emergency appropriation for payment to the escrow account, escrow agent for partial defensive and Long Meadow Toll Bridge revenue bonds. $18,217,306.78.
Sanchez moves.
Juby, seconds.
Discussion,
Surges.
Ms. Surges?
I just hate the word emergency. If we could, I mean, again, we use that all so often, and if we can just say it's an adjustment. I understand that. Emergency makes it sound like we're doing something wrong, and
No,
this is nothing but positive. So
it's not the best,
just me, sir, sorry.
no. We need to name it something else.
We need to name it something else, rebrand it.
Kathy?
Just one more. So this is essentially a housekeeping item. Now that we had all the numbers for the closings, we need to make a budget adjustment in the relevant funds. The reason why it's called emergency appropriation is because that's what the state statute calls it. When we passed the resolution several months ago to ensure that the county's budget adjustment process was in line with state statute, that is the terminology that the state uses. Perhaps, yeah, I can speak with the state's attorney's office about, if we can amend that language. But essentially what the state statute says is, once you adopt a budget, any reason to increase the budget is an emergency appropriation.
All right. I guess we'll have to live with it. We'll have to live with that, sir. Just. All right, moving on. We did the vote on, did we?
No.
No?
Call the vote.
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bates.
may I ask to have Resolution A removed from the agenda today? We haven't voted on it in Energy and Environmental yet.
I can make that motion, being on the committee.
And I'll second it.
I motion that we remove TMP, whatever it is, from the agenda. Wait, that we move TMP 242571, approving a fiscal year operations and maintenance agreement with the USGS for the stream and rainfall gauges, that we remove it from the agenda until it passes through its committee.
Leonard will second.
A motion to remove A and B. Any discussion?
Just A.
Just A.
Oh, just A?
Just A.
Just A. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
So removed. That was the extent of it, just one, A?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So moving on. Item B, under contracts and purchases, a resolution authorizing the ERAP2 funding for external housing stabilization $721,219.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Leonard Sanchez, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item C is a resolution authorizing the contract for Kane County Building Management Pavement Management Services with Patriot Maintenance Incorporated, bid number 24-036-TS for $1 million.
Sanchez moves.
Juby seconds.
Sanchez, Juby, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item D is a resolution authorizing the contract with Misfits Construction for the construction of the Chrism Trail Drainage Project for $183,205, but the total was $200,000.
Sanchez moves.
Juby seconds.
Discussion.
I love their name.
Misfits. Yeah. They're approved. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman. Passes.
E is a resolution authorizing the contract renewal for Kane County janitorial supplies with Warehouse Direct, bid number 22-018, $140,000.
Leonard moves.
Juby seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. F is a resolution, Metro West Contract Renewal Services.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Juby seconds.
Julie, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. G is a resolution authorizing renewal of support service contract for the homeless management information system, $46,332.46.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Juby seconds.
Julie, discussion. Roll call.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. H is a resolution authorizing intergovernmental agreement with Carroll County for juvenile detention services, $175 a day per individual.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Juby seconds.
Julie, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. I is a resolution authorizing intergovernmental agreement with Montgomery County for juvenile detention services, $175 a day per individual.
Leonard moves.
Leonard,
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. J is a resolution authorizing intergovernmental agreement with Shelby County for juvenile detention services, $175 a day.
Leonard moves.
Leonard,
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. K is a resolution authorizing purchase of audio visual equipment and supplies from Conference Technologies Incorporated, DBA CTI, $250,000.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Leonard Sanchez, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. L is a resolution authorizing purchase of audio visual equipment and supplies for the 16th Judicial Circuit Court from Conference Technologies Incorporated, doing business as CTI, $198,649.65.
Sanchez moves.
Juby seconds.
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And M is a resolution authorizing the purchase of 3 vehicles for the Kane County Sheriff's Office, $151,184.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Surges.
Surges, discussion, Ms. Juby?
I need to make a motion amending, changing the fund line item from 125.800.810.70070 automotive equipment to fund line item 128.380.395.70070 automotive equipment. Per building or
Transfer.
Sanchez seconds.
I didn't just make it up. We just, I motion, yeah.
Wow. Could you explain that?
Yes, it's in the wrong fund.
Oh, okay.
So it just needs to
Super.
be moved over to the correct fund where we actually have money.
We have a motion to,
Motion and a second.
We had a motion and second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good, Roger?
The amendment is approved. We do have a,
Roll call. Call the roll. Roll call.
oh,
We did it.
please.
Oh, okay.
We
yeah.
did voice.
Motion to approve, yeah.
You approved the amendment, now you're approving the
Need to approve
motion.
the motion.
We did the amendment. Now we have to do the motion.
Have
with
we
the
had a motion to approve the resolution?
Yeah.
That's, I thought we did. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Yeah,
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Davis question.
Thank you very much.
Old business. I have none. Reports placed on file.
Sanchez asked for unanimous consent to place the reports on file.
Any opposition? Reports will be placed on file by consent. Committee chairman's comments? I have nothing. We need to go into executive session to release our closed session minutes. Do I have a motion to go into executive?
Leonard moves.
be seconds.
Is that Alden?
Juby,
Is that,
Roll call.
that has to be roll call?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
A roll call, please.
Juby,
Yeah,
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges, Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
All right, everybody online that's joining us in the closed session, please accept the invite. I will let you know when we're together. Be aware we are live streaming and that will be going out to the public until we are in the closed session. Please accept those invites. Even if you are in the room, you must also accept your invite.
okay.
Thanks.
Cute thing, cute thing.
How we doing?
Well, you need to go shooting.
Probably shouldn't say that.
Right. I'm just a visitor.
Yeah. You don't have
I'm not going anywhere.
Brooks, go ahead and read the, here.
Brooks, tell me you're not done.
Are you familiar with Reddit? Reddit?
Website of all time.
Zach, it's just me. It's just me.
Finance, because you guys are so well.
Amen to that.
It looks like an American flag is an international distress.
Starting down to the excess reserves down to that. So I'm a little confused by them saying that.
So I was at GNC the other day.
So we're back in regular session. Do we need a roll call? Oh, not yet? I'm sorry.
That was, we got down to.
Trying.
I didn't take a photo of it, but I kept the
When
wrapper
we're
at
talking
home.
about cutting.
I'm going there today and buying a box. They
You
were-
can-
And I bought something that looked like a strawberry. top.
All right, you are in open session.
Now back in open session, we have a roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby here. All right.
Lewis, Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Surges,
Present.
Tepe,
Happy here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Berman.
No,
Here.
Oh, so,
We have a motion to,
Tepe moves to accept an exhibit A as presented by our state's attorney.
Juby seconds.
discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
VI.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Fabulous. Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Now we have to,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Leonard seconds.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're out of here.
That's pretty good. I've done 6 weeks.
meeting.